Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me as always, he's assured me that all my personal information is kept completely confidential. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
That's right, sexy. It's going great over here, and we're just going to have a beautiful girl call you on your podcast.
I don't like this. I don't like it. Stop it. I didn't think that you were going to go there, and I did not enjoy that at all.
You opened the door for me. So.
This week on the show, our series Deconstructing the Films of Paul Thomas Anderson continues with the director's fourth feature film. We're talking about 2002's romantic comedy drama, Punch Drunk Love, starring Adam Sandler. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about this one with you, Matt.
Me too. Very interesting, very unusual movie.
Yeah. Then after we talk about Punch Drunk Love, the New York Times has released a list of the 100 best films of the 21st century. And we're going to talk about that list a little bit. We're going to go through it. We're going to see what we liked and what we didn't and just kind of talk about it. It's always fun when we see these lists pop up.
Yeah, we love lists.
Chat about them. Yeah.
I agree.
All right, Matt, without further ado, let's get into Paul Thomas Anderson's fourth film. Let's talk about Punch Drunk Love.
Hi, this is Georgia.
This is Barry Egan.
So what do you do, Barry?
I have my own business. We have a non-breakable handle. Let me demonstrate for you.
You're married, aren't you?
No.
Barry, that's your sister.
There's this friend of mine from work, and I want you to meet her. This is Lena.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No.
It must be weird for you to have so many sisters.
Actually, no. It's very nice.
Remember we used to call you gay boy and get all mad?
What's that?
We were calling you gay boy and you got so mad.
Matt, what is this movie all about?
Socially frustrated, Barry Egan calls a phone sex line to curb his loneliness. Little does he know it will land him in deep trouble and will jeopardize his burgeoning romance with the mysterious Lena.
This movie was written and directed by Mr. Paul Thomas Anderson. It stars Adam Sandler, Emily Watson, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, as well as a collection of other characters, because this guy's got 7 sisters. Matt, had you seen Punch Drunk Love before this watch, and what did you think?
I had watched it before this. I don't think I had any real awareness of Paul Thomas Anderson as a director when I watched it, so I wasn't like fitting it into a constellation. I just watched it sort of in isolation. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was, I think at the time I didn't know what to do with it because it's like, it's an Adam Sandler comedy. No, it's not, but it's kind of funny but it's not a comedy, but it's also not any other thing that you recognize, which I'm coming to think of as one of Paul Thomas Anderson's hallmarks, where it's like, I think I literally said this about the last movie we discussed, mm-hmm. that being like, it doesn't fit into any genre. And this one sort of dips its toes into several genres. Like it is very funny. Like it's got a lot of funny moments. It's got a lot of dramatically satisfying moments where you kind of pump your fist. But it feels weird to call it a comedy. I mean, it definitely has elements of cringe comedy. I don't know. I don't like to categorize things over much anyway. The point is, it's just an very unusual movie, but it's very effective at what it's doing. But the mm-hmm. thing that it's doing is so unusual that I didn't know what to do with it the first time I watched it, and now I'm just like, oh my god, this is genius. This is genius artistry. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I'd seen this movie before as well. Don't really even recall how I felt about it. Probably don't just really remember it. And I think, speaking now, when this will, of course, change several times throughout the next few weeks, I think this is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. I think I liked this better than Magnolia, which is a film I really loved. I'm in love with everything this movie is doing and trying to do. I'm in love with the idea of Paul Thomas Anderson becoming obsessed with Adam Sandler to a level where he just like was obsessively watching Sandler movies and watching his best of special on Saturday Night Live, those video cassette tapes you could buy, and just watching them over and over again. And then he basically sat down and wrote his version of an Adam Sandler comedy. And this is what we get. That's delightful. And I'm really, really fascinated by this movie, and I love everyone in it. It was just such a pleasure. I think it also helps that this movie was 90 minutes long. That is actually, I read that one thing, he had a goal. Leaving Magnolia, which was the next movie I'm going to write, is going to be 90 minutes long, and it's going to have Adam Sandler in it. And he achieved his goal on 2 points there.
That's great. That's great. I wonder what role this played in Adam Sandler's career, because I mean, I think he would have had a successful career whether he was in this movie or not. But like, this is me kind of talking out of my ass here, but I feel like this was a moment where he kind of got our attention collectively of just like, oh, he's like a really good actor. He is the lead of this movie. He's carrying it, and it's not like wacky, sort of hamming it up like over the top comedy performance. It's basically a dramatic performance where the comedy is kind of in the margins, and the comedy is like in the absurdity of the situation more than it is like, oh, isn't Adam Sandler so wacky with his faces and his yelling? Like he does yell in the movie.
Of course he does that. Yeah.
He does yell, but he's yelling in a way that's like disconcerting. You're like afraid of him, and which is perfect. He's great. He's so good in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, like, absolutely, this was a huge watershed moment for Adam Sandler's career. This was the movie that demonstrated to people that he could do dramatic roles. There's 2 different veins of Adam Sandler movie in my mind. There's like the lovable loser that finds love movie, which is he did a lot. Like, that's technically Happy Gilmore. That's technically Billy Madison. Like, he's just this like inept loser that it ends up being kind of a romance movie because he finds a girl at some point.
Yeah.
Big Daddy is that as well.
Wedding Singer.
Wedding Singer is that. Yes. And then there's like the Adam Sandler's Doing a Voice movie. Like, that's the Little Nicky, the Water Boy. And those, I never liked those ones as much. Like, I enjoy Adam Sandler movies as much as the next guy, but I was never like the Adam Sandler leans really hard into his character shtick type thing.
The Water Boy is a good movie, but yes, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
But I just mean that, like, this movie, people were like, oh, we can do the drama thing. And like, he's in movies that ultimately aren't very good. Like, he's in the film Spanglish in 2004, 2 years after this. He's in Click 2 years after that in 2006, which are still comedies, but I think are closer to this than like what you would call a typical Adam Sandler movie. And then, of course, like this, like you can draw a very direct line between this movie and Uncut Gems, which is 17 years later. But that's the Safdie movie he made that got him I believe an Academy Award nomination. He didn't end up winning, but like, you can see the through line there. And I mean, when you look at the history of this movie, this is a movie in which Paul Thomas Anderson wrote this role for Adam Sandler, wanted Adam Sandler to do this, and then had to fight tooth and nail with the studio to allow him to cast Adam Sandler, because they were just like, are you kidding me? Like, no, you can't. Not what? That's not what we're doing here. He can't do that. And the truth is, of course he can.
Yeah.
And because the role was written for him, it's this perfect like window into the mind of Paul Thomas Anderson, because he looks at this guy, he studies this guy and what he does on SNL and what he does in these movies, and he writes a movie that is out of his wheelhouse, but he still understands on some specific level that he's fully capable of doing everything that this movie asks of him.
Yeah.
It's kind of remarkable in that way.
I think that's what's great is there we find this point of resonance between these two artists where it does feel like an Adam Sandler movie because, I mean, he is the lead, but it also feels like a Paul Thomas Anderson movie in the sort of elliptical nature of the plot. And there's a way that he approaches plot.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you don't really know what the plot is until the movie's over. And then you're like, okay, I get it. That's what we were doing. That's now that I know where we were headed, I know what we did. And I don't even, I actually might want to say, like, you kind of have to watch PTA movies twice to understand what the hell's going on. Not because they're like confusing, but because you're just like, I don't know what is the story here, you know, that because they're not a genre, they don't click into a format. So you can just be like, oh, he's going to meet a woman and find love. At the beginning of the movie, that actually seems unlikely because of how much of a like misfit is too small, is too minor of a word. Like he's not a lovable loser. He's actually sort of an unlovable weirdo.
Yeah.
You kind of, he kind of grows on you gradually, but like you can see why he just is hard to get along with. His the outburst at his sister's, okay, this is one of the things I wanted to talk about is like the narrow tightrope this movie walks, where sort of in an objective sense, if you step back from things, the actions he's taking do seem crazy. And
yes,
but like the movie just very carefully, and partly because of the script, partly because of Sandler, it just walks this line where you're still on his side despite all of that. And you know, you see his 7 sisters who just treat him horribly, to the point where when he breaks all the windows in his sister's house, I always have such a complex reaction to that moment, because it's like, that's such an unhinged, like unacceptable thing to do. And he knows that. He just like has rage issues.
Yeah.
And then he like weeps, you know, and then you're like, oh my God, like this guy's a mess. And then somehow like it's all in the little details of things where like the doctor, the dentist brother-in-law tells the sister's like, did you really ask him to connect you with the shrink? And like for some reason that flips you around on it. I know I'm doing a terrible job explaining myself, but like that's because it's so like subtly threaded through things where you're continually nudged back onto his side by these almost blink and you'll miss it moments of character interaction and characterization, despite the fact that he's like constantly doing ridiculous things, like even going to Hawaii and pretending that it's for a business trip, and then relatively quickly just being like, no, I just came here to see you, I don't have a business trip. Like that's a very strange thing to do. But like we're asked, how are we meant to feel about it? You know, okay, I'm going to stop, but it's just like the movie puts you in such a particular place. It puts you just where it wants you, but it's this place of like contradiction almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a few things to say about what you said there. I think the first is that my clearest understanding of this character actually comes from a Magnolia line. It comes from the William H. Macy character in Magnolia, where near the end of the movie, he says, I have so much love in me, but I don't have anywhere to put it. Mm-hmm. And to me, that feels like a good distillation of Adam Sandler's character here, is that like he has all these incredibly complicated and incredibly strong emotions, rage being the foremost of them. And he just doesn't have anywhere to channel that at all. And so it keeps spilling over in moments where he destroys things constantly. And then he finds Lena, which, I mean, I think the most salient question of this movie is, why does this woman like him?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't think the movie contains the answer, but it does contain enough subtext for you to kind of feel okay about it. Like, specifically what I mean is just the fact that she also seems like a weird misfit.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the moment in Hawaii where they're making out and he just says, I want to bash your face in. Yeah. and she's like, her response to that is just, doesn't miss a beat. I want to yank your eyes out and eat them.
Chew on them. Yeah.
Oh, these are people that are made for each other, actually.
Yeah. Like you can tell that the thing that attracts him to her and her to him is that they know, they can almost feel ineffably this connection. Like I think in the world of the movie is a very romantic movie in the sense of like having at its core a sense that the world is a romantic place, because she sees this picture of him and like she knows nothing about him except that she sees a picture of him, and there's something in that picture where she sees this man is a kindred spirit. I have to meet this man. She almost falls in love with him from the picture, just because there's enough of a powerful connection there. And and like I think the movie almost wants us to just take that at face value and be like, yeah, they have this incredibly powerful connection that no one else can even relate to. It doesn't even make sense, actually, because love doesn't make sense. And the simple question of saying, like, what does she see in him? It's like, it's not how this works.
Yeah,
it's not rational.
Absolutely. And it's, the construction of this movie is so fascinating because it is a romance film, but it's a romantic comedy that it feels like it's deconstructing the pieces of a romantic comedy. Just like the idea that this is a guy with 7 sisters, and like one of the opening sequences is him trying to work, and he's just getting called or visited by sisters like again and again and again. Like that feels like straight out of a romantic comedy. It's just like a regular beat in a romantic comedy is like, oh, look he's the guy who's got all the sisters and they're always trying to set him up with a girl. And isn't this fun and cute? And it goes from fun and cute to like bad very quickly, actually, because I think you're right. Like, this is a guy that objectively is doing things that we find crazy or disturbing, but the movie keeps you pitying him constantly because it puts him in situations like he walks into the room with his sisters and they're talking about how they used to call him gay boy when he was a kid. And like it's this really interesting choice in writing here, because he walks in the room, or he's like debating going in and out of the front door, uncertain if he wants to actually show up or not. And in the background, they're having this conversation where they're just like ripping him to shreds. And then like he walks in the door, and like all social decorum would indicate that the second he shows up, they're going to stop that stuff, right? That they were talking about him like he wasn't there. And then the second he walks in the door, they're going to stop it. And they just keep going immediately. They see him and they continually talk about him and to him in the most dismissive, most insulting way, to the point where it stops being this cute, like funny, haha, romantic comedy bit and starts being like a Jesus Christ, leave him alone.
Yeah, they're abusing him. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I just a note here, because this jumped out to me so much, is you're absolutely right. And you have this feeling that his sisters are all awful people who are abusing him. And then they give us, toward the very end of the movie, a moment where Lena is talking to his sister from the TV show 24. And
yes.
And like, I forget the exact back and forth, but his sister is like, yeah, I don't know if you would have gotten along with him. He's so strange. And then Lena's like, yeah, he did seem a little strange. And then his sister is like, well, I mean, he's not that strange. Like he's I mean, I think he's strange, but and it's like she's defending him. She's like sticking up for him. And it's like, oh, so we're making this a little bit more complicated, that like his sisters, that this is just the dynamic that exists with his family, is that we treat our brother like shit, but we actually love him and we're actually trying to set him up with a woman. We just also can't help ourselves from constantly ripping him down, which struck
including
me,
in front of the woman you're trying to set him up with.
Yeah, but then objecting when she like jumps on the bandwagon. It's such an interesting, like, it felt like a very truthful comment about like family dynamics, where it's like, no, it's not like we hate him. We just talk shit about him all the time. You're not understanding. It's not. I thought that was great.
I agree, but the problem is that he's not a participant in that. He's just the receiving of it, and and it's obviously incredibly bothering to him, but to the point where he doesn't and couldn't ever actually say anything about it. And that's like, again, this idea of him having all these emotions, all these feelings, all this anger, but love and loneliness, and just not knowing where to put any of that. And like, I mean, if you think about the movie, like if we break the movie down in its basic parts, like what is the arc of the character of Barry Egan in this movie, right? Like how does Barry change? And I mean, the funniest thing to me is that the way he changes is he stops breaking glass and destroying bathrooms and starts breaking people. he finds an outlet for his feelings, in that his deep feeling of love and companionship goes to Lena, and then his feelings of anger and rage go towards the people that are putting her in danger. So I guess that's like a good thing.
Yeah. He's able to direct his emotions in productive directions, right? My tongue is only slightly in cheek in saying this. Like he's able to, instead of calling a phone sex line for companionship, he's able to put himself out there, take the enormous risk of going on a date with this woman, trying to spend time with her, despite the fact that I call it an enormous risk. From his perspective, it's an enormous risk because like he knows that if he screws this up, which he expects to screw it up, his sisters are going to just ream his ass over it forever. And just like it's going, he's like, so he does that. He saves himself from loneliness. And then on the flip side, the anger is like, instead of his anger being directed in an unfocused way at everything, at the bathroom, at the windows, never at the targets that deserve it, he's able to actually direct it at the targets that deserve it. The people who are treating him poorly, he reacts with anger. If anything, it's a sort of proportionate and controlled anger. I mean, it's basically a comedy scene, but you know, the family that comes after him, he sort of like efficiently and smoothly beats them up in a way that's terrifying while not actually being that like horrible, you know? And then
I mean, he kicks their ass. Like you see him walking up to that scene, and I think everything in the movie up until that point has kind of prepared you for him being kind of inept and about to get his ass beat. But then he just punches the first guy right in the face and drops him. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I see now.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right that it is kind of a spillover. It is rage. It is his anger issues, but he beats the three of them up, and then there's one left in the car, and he just throws him the tire iron.
Yeah.
And then leaves.
Yeah. He smashes the windows and then throws him the tire iron, and the guy's like blubbering. So it's like, yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah. And then of course the conflict with Philip Seymour Hoffman at the very end, which is not violent at all. That he just walks up face to face, man to man, and just tells it like it is, and completely shuts the guy down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just he finds his center, his emotions are now aligned with the world and not just sort of chaotic and destroying him. So this connects, I think, to something, you know, this is one of my favorite things about our deconstructing directors is we find these through lines, and a big through line jumped out to me after watching these past three movies, in particular, which is sort of frustrated male sexuality, and I think loneliness maybe more broadly. But you know, the first movie we talked about was the second movie we talked about. You corrected me on this. Okay, so it's actually all four of the movies we've covered. So the first movie we talked about features like prostitution prominently, and I think gambling might also be sort of folded into this, where it's gambling in that movie is a sort of maladaptive coping behavior that these men are doing to deal with the fact that they don't know what the hell to do with themselves.
Yeah,
you could say. Okay, so then we move from that into Boogie Nights, which is about pornography, which is, you know, another kind of failure to launch sort of thing these people are doing, and generally portrayed relatively negatively by the movie in most cases, though not all. Then we move to Magnolia, where we have the character of Tom Cruise, who is this pickup artist guy, icon, saying all these horribly misogynistic things, trying to, like, you know, basically in a sense preying on men's need to feel some kind of self-esteem, and almost like hijacking their desire to not be lonely and like replacing it with the desire to just like dominate and be the hero of their own story. Which that movie doesn't have a lot of sympathy for that behavior either. And then here finally we have a character who's calling a phone sex line, again because he's lonely, he's frustrated, he doesn't know what to do with himself. All of his actions seem to backfire, so he ends up calling a phone sex line, and then that ends up making his life even worse. So there's this interesting. None of these are like quite the same, but I do feel like there's a through line of like frustrated, lonely male sexuality sort of like misfiring and leading to some terrible consequence.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just true and well observed, that this has absolutely been kind of one of the core through lines of these four films so far. It's interesting that I don't remember this movie as the phone sex line movie, which you think I would. I remember it as the pudding movie, which is surprising to me. Because like, there's a part of me that thinks there's almost too many plots in this movie, and yet it all works anyway. Like, because like you essentially have three lines continuing at the same time, right? You have his healthy choice pudding scheme. You have the phone sex part that I think ties into what you were just talking about, and then you have the core of it, which is the romance story. And they don't really mesh. They just kind of spill into each other in a way that ends up being funny but also tense. I don't know. What do you think?
I think they mesh in a way that is purely arc based, where it's like the arc of his character is that he is finally figuring things out and making choices where he's taking some amount of risk and he's standing up for himself for the first time is maybe one way to put it. But you're right. Like I one way to put it is I think if you remove the phone sex line, then the movie has really lost something. I agree. Like that is necessary for sort of motivating him and giving him opportunities to make character choices, and he doesn't make the right choices the first couple of times. So you see him, he starts at a low point and then he's challenged and then he rises to the challenge and has character growth, right? So that's and yes, you're right that it doesn't like elegantly weave in with the romance story. There's really just kind of the one point of intersection, but I think that's, first of all, that just kind of feels very PTA to me for some reason.
Sure.
And I think in the end you feel very satisfied and you walk out of the theater smiling and it all works. I hear what you're saying though about it kind of feeling disconnected and to the point where you can almost forget that is in the movie.
Yeah. Well, it essentially, I think, like maybe metaphorically, him trying to juggle the different aspects of who he is all at the same time. And I like a lot of the tension of this movie is kind of encapsulated in that one scene where he's at work, his sister and Lena are there. He's getting calls from the phone sex line person, threatening calls. Everyone's asking him about the pudding, and also like shit keeps happening in his work. Like the guy drives a forklift into the wall and knocks a bunch of stuff down, and it is this kind of like cacophony of things all happening to Barry at the same time, and he is barely able to keep up with all of it.
Yeah. On that note, I just wanted to mention, I think when I was talking to you about this movie earlier, I referred to it as like a cringe comedy, and I immediately felt like that was a wrong description. Not that it isn't cringe. It definitely makes me physically cringe a lot. But it's more that it's just like incredibly intense. And a lot of this is the performances, and a lot of it is the direction. The scene you were just describing, this is why I pinged off this, is the scene you were just describing with the forklift and all the chaos. Like the music is this very frenetic, fast-paced music that's mixed very high. It's almost mixed like slightly above the dialogue. So you feel stressed by the music and you feel stressed by the camera movements, and you're seeing the physical tension in Adam Sandler's performance is just ratcheting up, and he's just I mean, and it's funny, like, and that's why it's not wrong to call it cringe comedy, because it is funny how he's just like ignoring things that are happening around him. He's just like ignoring the fact that the forklift crashed into the wall because he's like maxed out on how he's like, I have no more bandwidth to handle things happening. I'm not even seeing the forklift. Like he's just like trying to get through the situation, and not embarrass himself in front of this woman who he obviously wants to impress. But I was like so tense, like so uncomfortably tense for so much of this movie. because you're and that doesn't work unless you're invested. Like you're so invested in this character so quickly
Yeah.
that he's really able to sort of just emotionally squeeze you with the threat of like what's going to happen. How's Barry going to get out of this? I've seen this movie before, and I guess maybe I didn't quite remember like how bad do things get with this phone sex operator line thing, because you just really feel for like the thing this guy cares about the most is just like he doesn't want people to laugh at him, and this is a situation he's created where now there's a huge risk of people finding out about this. Like if his sisters found out about the phone sex line thing, that would be it. His life would be over, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about like the sheer experience of watching the movie is like borderline unpleasant in the level of tension that it creates.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, it is really interesting because this movie appears to be operating on a certain level, and I think like the score of this movie is very deliberate in kind of creating this very frenetic, but also very like traditional, almost at times like love story, romance music type thing, and yet there's always this kind of fear underneath it all lurking that this could break bad at like any moment. And like really break bad. You're totally right. Like we could very quickly transform from a romance movie into something incredibly violent and destructive. Like are these people going to actually hurt his family? Or is he going to hurt them? Or like it could go that way at any time. And the movie is constructed in a way that it feels like you, just when you think you know what type of movie you're in, something else happens and you're not quite sure anymore. Like it all plays on the surface level as kind of this zany, funny, goofy stuff, like comedy of errors type stuff. But there is like tension underneath it for sure.
Yeah. I think that's one of the many things that sets it apart from an Adam Sandler, a typical Adam Sandler film. Those films can have heart. They can be fun. They can be funny. But this one, you're just like, I'm actually just terrified for this character because I'm so invested. And I'm so like pulled into the frame of the character where you almost just uncritically accept the idea that like, I'm so scared of what will happen if his sisters find out about this. Which really just means you've kind of bought into his frame. I think that's, by the way, I think that's like the operative ingredient of cringe comedy is like cringe comedy works by getting you to emotionally buy into the characters and then putting them in socially uncomfortable situations so that you vicariously feel uncomfortable. But that only works if they manage to get the buy-in. And this movie succeeds so hard at getting the buy-in. I don't even know how it does that. Like PTA is just so good.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it's definitely PTA, but I also think it's Sandler. I really do. I mean, I think this is again why Sandler was perfect for this role. Of course it was written for him, but like he just has this quality to him that even when he's breaking glass, destroying bathrooms, feels like he could lose it at any moment. Like he just garners sympathy.
Yeah.
He just really does. And the movie is helping him there. Also, I think there's this really interesting construction that I definitely wanted to talk to you about where when we meet this guy, we meet him, he's on the phone, but we meet him in the blue suit. And from our initial impression of the character, this is a man dressed for work in a suit. He's working in kind of a warehouse situation, but he's dressed professionally. He's just sitting out there drinking his coffee, and then crazy shit starts to happen. Like I love the car that like flips over and slides in front of him, and then like nothing ever comes of that. That was just a thing that happened in the morning.
Yeah.
And also the piano or whatever it was called, I forget what it's
Harmonium.
called. Harmonium, thank you. Just left there randomly. Like these are things that don't have any answers to them, but they just happen. But like we only learn later that Barry has never dressed like this before. That like this is a new decision of his to wear a suit and to wear this blue suit specifically, and it is the only wardrobe he wears for the entire movie. So it's just this really interesting. I like suits convey something very specific. You see a person in a suit, you make judgment calls about who they are, what type of person they are. And we're introduced to the character like that, and only learned after the fact that is an atypical thing for him. But we never get to see that other version of him, and it's just a really interesting way to get yourself into who the character is. That we make a judgment call about him first as this put together, confident, wearing a blue suit guy. And then we learn that's not him at all. But also at the same time, we learn that he is like actively trying to improve himself.
Yeah.
That this is a character who, before the start of the movie, has made decisions to try to fix his life.
Yeah.
And that is another way that the movie endears you to him.
One detail that I forget, even though I know it, is that he is the owner of this company.
Yes.
It's like he's such like a rundown sort of self, confidenceless guy that you figure he's the guy who runs the phones. It's like, no, this is his company. He's doing that. There's like this through line in the background where he has this really interesting relationship with, Lance, played by
the Luis Guzman character.
Luis Guzman.
Yeah.
And I almost want to rewatch the movie again and just pay attention to this through line, because like I like there's this interesting subtext where like Lance like respects him a lot actually, but maybe is also aware that he's off.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know, like there were a few specific moments where I know what it was. It's that Lance reacts to seeing him in the suit, and then the next time, the next day, he's wearing the suit. Yeah. It's like and none of that is verbalized, but it's just like, oh, he saw what his boss was doing, and he thought that was admirable, and now he wants to do it because and I think it's also I think just true that Adam Sandler's character doesn't recognize that. Like he doesn't. I think he totally misses the fact that his subordinate like actually respects him and looks up to him, because to him it's impossible that anyone could respect and look up to him.
Yeah, it's a sad little unspoken story that happens in the background, because the next day he comes in a suit, and then the day after that he's back to his normal outfit, and it's almost like you could almost draw the line there. That's like, oh, he didn't notice.
Yeah,
he didn't say anything, so I'll just go back to dressing the way I normally dress.
Yeah, and he was kind of rude to him too, because he was kind of using him as a distraction prop during his stressful day. So yeah, it is kind of a sad little story that I don't know that it culminates in anything. No, but it was definitely a thing that going on in the background that I liked.
Yeah, I mean, he does like I think I will say, if we want to try to put a bow on this little Luis Guzman Adam Sandler side story of the movie, I think cutting him in on the pudding scheme could be seen as a step up level of like respect and trust between the two characters.
Thanks for reminding me of that. I had this thought while watching the movie. I just forgot. Yes, that like that is a moment where he again sort of takes a risk, where he's like, people are going to think I'm crazy for this pudding thing. This looks ridiculous. And then they end up going to the supermarkets together and getting all the stuff. And I agree. I feel like that's him sort of reaching out with actual friendship rather than sort of seeing this guy as a, just another person who's going to hurt him. Yes, that was what we were doing there. You're right.
I love the pudding part. I love it.
Yeah.
This is real, by the way. There was a man who discovered this healthy choice American Airlines thing and realized that they were undervaluing how much it would cost versus the benefit you would get. And he did spend $3,000 on pudding and racked up 1 million frequent flyer miles with American Airlines. Paul Thomas Anderson had to ask both the man's permission and Healthy Choice's permission to put the story into his movie, and they both granted it. And it is just like it is one of those things where like you're a creator, you're a writer, and you hear these stories, and you're like, that sounds made up, that sounds like something that would be in a movie, and I have to include that in my movie.
Uh-huh. No, I think I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that reminds me very much of Magnolia, where Magnolia literally begins with this list of like fake sounding, urban legend sounding stuff, of which I think most and perhaps all of those things actually happened. I didn't actually circle back on this, but
I know the final one did.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
I mean, here's the thing is that I've heard all of those told to me as like, did you know this thing happened? I wouldn't be surprised if they were things that people definitely earnestly believed happened, but might not have actually happened. But anyway,
Sure.
I need to go back and figure out. Maybe it's just what actually matters is that Paul Thomas Anderson thought that all those things happened, and that's what's relevant here, because he just seems to like putting these like ripped from today's headlines sort of outlandish tales into his movies, just because it's fun to him, and I think it's a fun choice actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's also such a great like establishing moment for who this guy is, because he's this guy that kind of stumbles upon this thing and then goes, "Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I could use this."
Uh-huh.
But he doesn't travel, Matt. Like frequent flyer miles are useless to him. I would never have to pay for a plane ticket ever again. Barry, you've never been on a plane before.
Uh-huh.
And you don't go on a plane until you find Lena and then fly to Hawaii. Yeah. Not using your frequent flyer miles, by the way, because it'll take 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. What was that sound? I don't know. Yeah, but I think even that, it's him. It's part of this theme of like him standing up for himself, taking risk, taking charge of his life, even though it doesn't really make sense.
Well, and what I love is like he comes up with this crazy idea with the pudding, and like part of the reason he doesn't want to tell anyone is because he doesn't want people to abuse it and then it get taken away from him. But then the other part of the reason is exactly what you said earlier, is he's embarrassed by it. Mm-hmm. He's so embarrassed by it. And this is a perfect way to understand this character, is a guy that would come up with this crazy idea, but then he's too embarrassed by it to tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
What a perfect image of Barry.
Because if you think about, I guess if you watch the movie not knowing that it works out for him, which I have a hard time putting myself back in that position, there's a real risk, there's a real feeling of anxiety that like maybe this won't work out. Maybe he will actually just look like a complete fool who bought $3,000 of pudding with nothing to show for it. Yeah. Because the movie, the beginning part of the movie is just him being abused and screwed over and manipulated like by the phone sex line people, where they trick him into giving him their social security number, which it's so painful, man. This movie is so painful because they're like, and your social security number. And he's like, why do you need that? Which is the correct, and then they're like, it's to verify your credit. And he like tries to weasel out of it. And then he just folds and gives them his social security number, which is just so bad.
The thing I love, by the way, about his call with the phone sex person, he says his name is Jack, right?
Uh-huh.
And the talk with her multiple times, she will switch between calling him Jack and calling him Barry, and he never notices.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't notice that either.
Yeah, it happens. She calls him Barry at least 2 times in the initial first conversation with him, and you're like, oh, and he doesn't notice at all.
That's funny.
Or what worse, he does notice and just doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Which I would believe as well.
Yeah, that's possible. I didn't notice. I feel stupid, but yeah, that's great.
But like, I think it's just, you said like taking risks and like doing the pudding thing. Like that is going to Hawaii, right? That is flying to Hawaii. And like, again, we still are not 100% sure what type of movie we're in. Or is he going to get to Hawaii and she's just going to be like, what are you doing here? And unfortunately she's not that at all.
Yeah.
She's ecstatic that he's there. And like, I mean, it is interesting that we have these two moments in the story of him flying all the way to Hawaii to be with her, and then him flying all the way to Utah to confront the guy. And like in both instances, there is the makeup of the shot is not exactly the same, but there is two shots in this movie where he gets right up in the face of a person he's just flown hundreds or thousands of miles to confront. One of them is that beautiful romantic shot of him and her, like lit by the open door, them in shadows, and then the other is just him and Philip Seymour Hoffman facing each other face to face. But like, they're not the same shot, but they're not entirely dissimilar either.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I like that. These two, the two consequential confrontations of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but they both like Barry is such a person that like is acted upon. Like he's so passive throughout so much of the movie. Like the reason he's with Lena is because she sought him out, right? She showed up at his work. She constructed this whole I need to drop my car off thing. Then she asks him to dinner. She calls him on his way out to say, I wanted to kiss you. And that's what makes him come back. So like he is so entirely passive in everything. And the apex moment of the character is him being active. He actively flies to Hawaii. He actively flies to Utah. He confronts these people. He becomes an active character. There's a switch from passive to active that I think is really effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I think the reason the movie is a crowd pleaser rather than being like a terrible, it doesn't end like There Will Be Blood, is because there's like this note of like grace in it where, yes, he's getting basically stepped on by the world. He seems like a misfit. Nothing he tries works. And then there's this, it's sort of almost spiritual kind of in the way that Magnolia is, where it's like, and then one day his life turned around for no apparent reason. and now suddenly this woman appears who is actually apparently already in love with him before he even had to do anything. And now suddenly this idea of collecting the pudding occurs to him, and it actually is going to work out. And basically it's all just on him to not screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
And the tension comes from the fact that he's on the verge of screwing it up with the phone sex thing and the and just like flying off the handle in a rage all the time.
Yeah.
And smashing up bathrooms in the middle of a date and getting kicked out of the restaurant. And you're like, and she still manages to overlook this, right? So
yeah,
that's what I mean about Grace, is like her name isn't Grace, but maybe should be, because she's her role in the story is just to be like a sort of undeserved ray of goodness from the universe that shines upon this man, and it gives him the clarity of purpose to actually like fix things. And I kind of love that, because like I don't know, it seems like a sort of unusual story to tell, where it's like, no, she didn't show up because he earned it or because he deserved it. Sometimes wonderful things just happen out of nowhere.
Yeah. And
that's actually still a dramatic story to me, because like, well, then how do you respond to a wonderful thing happening to you out of nowhere? Like, do you fumble it? Do you, are you willing to sacrifice to keep it? I think that's really cool.
I agree. And I love his honesty too, where he just comes out and tells her what happened, that like, here's why I left you at the hospital.
Yeah.
I called the phone sex line, and now they're hustling me for money and sending people to beat me up, and I had to take care of it. And I took care of it. That is the kind of honesty that there's a line early in the movie where she at dinner, she comes clean to him, and she says, look, we didn't meet by chance. I saw your picture and I decided to come to where you work to try to meet you. And she says, I think if this is going to go anywhere, I need to be honest at the beginning of the relationship. And for a lot of the movie, he's not being honest, right? He's kind of, I mean, he's not lying, but he's not telling her what's going on.
Yeah.
He's hiding the pudding thing from her. He's hiding the phone sex stuff and what's going on with that from her, but he does come clean. The reason the relationship works ultimately is because he is honest with her. Like,
yeah.
I came to Hawaii. I didn't have business. I came here to be with you.
Yeah.
Also, I called the phone sec line and they're extorting me.
Yeah.
But I took care of it. And like, that is just brutal, dangerous honesty that could have blown everything up, actually.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a normal situation it would have. Like if somebody, so if ladies, if a man tells you that on your first date he destroyed the bathroom and you had to get kicked out because he had a fit of rage, like I think the kids these days would refer to that as a red flag. But like because we're like on this character's side and we understand like why he got so angry. He wasn't angry at her. He was angry at his sisters for yet again fucking with his ability to live his life. Still not a healthy reaction, but you know, and I still love his interaction with the waiter or the maitre d' or whatever who kicks him out. But
I don't know.
So I can't prove that it was you, but oh god, it's so funny. It's such a funny
movie.
God, I love it.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Let's talk about him.
Yes.
This is the Philip Seymour Hoffman characters that I remember most. Like I liked him in Boogie Nights a whole lot. I enjoyed him in Magnolia for sure. But like this kind of incredibly intense, ready to yell at you at any moment version of Philip Seymour Hoffman is like my guy. And I love him in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like he was like, all right, it's almost like PTA was like, all right, you're going to play Frank Mackey from the previous movie, but also you're going to be a coward because as soon as this guy shows up and stands toe to toe with you, you are terrified of him and you immediately fold.
Mm-hmm. Until he turns his back on you, and then you got to get one more
bar in. But then he still dominates you just because he turns around. Yeah, then you're like, hey, never mind. It's great.
It's so, that whole scene is so funny.
Yeah.
I forget. He's just like, yeah, get out of here, pervert. What did I say?
Yeah,
that's that.
That's that. I just. The Adam Sandler full of rage thing is like, it's simultaneously unnerving and hilarious, which I don't know if anybody else can quite nail that quite as well.
No, I don't think so. It's a very specific thing. And like Philip Seymour Hoffman is like one of the kings at like yell acting.
Yeah.
He's really good at it. And so like to put him in a movie, in a scene with Adam Sandler where they have to like yell at each other over the phone and then in person, and like Sandler holds his own, I think is remarkable.
Yeah.
I love that he brings the phone with him all the way to Utah.
Yeah. Hands it to the guy at the desk in the laundromat store. That mattress store, rather.
Yeah, mattress store. Yeah. Even that as his way to discover where their location is. Like that's clever.
Yeah.
He's like a smart dude.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't see himself that way.
Yeah. I forgot that detail completely, and I was like tickled by it because it's great.
What do you think of the dance sequence? The brief, like it's where they're buying the pudding, and then Sandler just like goes into this very memorable, like it's one of the lasting images of this movie is him doing his little dance. It seems out of character at first, but I think ultimately it makes perfect sense for Barry in that moment to just like break into dance. Yeah,
I think it's kind of touches on this grace idea that I am cooking up here, that it's like he finally feels like things are going his way for the first time in his life, and like this is him being relaxed and happy. It's something we've never seen before, and maybe something he is unfamiliar with. And then it's almost taken away from him by the fact that they're not going to give him the miles instantly. But like you said, that's he then takes the further risk of being like, all right, I need to do this. I need this to happen. So I'm just going to go to Hawaii regardless.
I love it. Maybe a little glimpse of, who he is again. And he's finally finding outlets for the things he feels. And this outlet is, I'm just going to do a little dance.
Yeah, exactly.
A little dance.
Yep. It's great.
And I think by the end of the movie, he's learned to like himself a little bit, which is good.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I think so. I think this is a very, maybe PTA's most optimistic movie.
Yeah. Which is great because it starts so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Great stuff.
Anything else you wanted to say about Punch Drunk Love? I guess we haven't talked about Emily Watson. I mean, we've talked about her character. We haven't talked about her performance. I think she's very good in this movie.
Yeah.
I think she works perfectly for this woman that, like, you can kind of imagine why she would be attracted to this guy, but you still have that kind of, like, the summary that you read at the beginning calls her the mysterious Lena. And like, we don't actually learn very much about her at all. But I think the mysterious is literally just because, like, hey, why are you so into this guy? But I think she works very well at what she has to do in this movie.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. I think where the mysterious thing comes from is like the way she reacts to things, and yeah. So we don't know much about her is the truth. Like,
yeah,
and also the way she reacts to some of his choices and confessions is very just like she just accepts it immediately. You know, he tells her that he tore up the bathroom at some point, right? Like he admits that, and her reaction is just a non-reaction of just like telling someone that you know had a cold last week. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, and it's like that's an unusual, that in and of itself is an unusual reaction to have to someone telling you something that would normally be considered upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why is she like that? And in some ways, I think that's, again, I feel this more than I have a rational explanation for it. But like, I feel like this is what they have in common is they both are like socially inept and like don't have correctly wired up emotions.
I think you're right. I mean, I think there's like, we could see a whole nother version of this movie that's just from her perspective and maybe like see more of her backstory. And to us, Barry would seem kind of mysterious and aloof and we would understand her completely. But because we're only getting it's his movie essentially. We just see, but yeah, I mean, there's hints of it. Like we talked about the scene where where they're talking. I pulled up the quote here just because I wanted to make sure I get it right. Your skin and your cheek, I want to bite it. I want to bite your cheek and chew on it. It's so fucking cute. And then he says, I'm looking at your face and I just want to smash it. I just want to fucking smash it with a sledgehammer and squeeze it. You're so pretty. And she says, I want to chew on your face. I want to scoop out your eyes and I want to eat them and chew them and suck on them.
Uh-huh.
And his response is, okay, this is funny.
Yeah.
This is nice. They're perfect for each other.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. And there's also just the more overt mysteries here and there where he's somebody the man answers the phone first, which I still wonder if there's not something to that. It's like, was there a man in her room?
I mean,
possible.
Definitely possible, right? Yeah, I don't know.
And I think like just the fact that he's able to just be like, we're just going to move past that. We're just going to not let that bother me. It's possible it was the wrong room. It's possible there was a man in her room. And then she says, I don't have a boyfriend. No, I and then she's like, I was married. And it's like, we don't learn anything more about that. So there's just elements of her character where it's just like this sketch of like, she's complicated. She's got a past. She's got a past just like he does. And I think that's what we're meant to take away is, and I think to get back to the performance, which is what you brought up originally here. I think she carries this air of like, this is a woman who has lived a life. This is a woman, a lot of shit has happened. You don't know what it is. You don't see it, but you feel it in the performance. You feel it between the lines. You feel it in her eyes. And I think that makes you just accept her willingness to accept him. Because it's like you don't know what she's been through. Maybe to her, this guy is he just fits some need of hers, and she knows herself better than we know her.
I think that's fair. I like that.
Cool.
Do you think I'm gonna be briefly uncharitable here as I ask an open-ended question?
Uh-huh.
why does Barry like her? Besides the fact that she's pretty, and is it unfair to say one of the things that Barry likes most about her is that she likes him?
I don't think it's unfair. I think that's all he knows about her at first. So,
Yeah.
But that to me doesn't sound so terrible. So, I get what you're saying, and I get why it, might be construed as uncharitable. But like in many contexts of relationships, someone has asked the other person out, and that's all you know at the beginning.
Sure.
You're just like, oh, you're attractive, and I want to spend yeah, you're into me, and that kind of makes me into you, because it's like, oh, that's exciting. That's and then that's just the start. I don't think there's anything. I get what you're saying, but like I think it functions.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like I guess there could be a version of this movie where we spend a lot of time characterizing Lena and making her more of a central character, right? Like that is. Let's put it this way: that's a more typical thing to do in a romantic comedy. Like 50 First Dates or something is not 95% focused on Adam Sandler's character with with a few moments of Drew Barrymore. It's like no, like the rom-com thing to do is to essentially balance the two characters in many cases, and if not balance the characters, then at least give you like a complex understanding of both of the characters to some degree. And this movie just doesn't do that. So that's, I think, what feels unusual.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I guess I could see a version of a critique of the movie in that regard, that this is first and foremost a romance movie that does not really characterize its female lead at all. But also it's like, it is this weird, maybe part of that is the point, because I mean, if you think about the Adam Sandler lovable loser that finds love movie, how much of the female lead in those movies, like who's the chicken? Billy Madison? Do I even remember who that woman is? And
yeah,
I mean, this is actually, the more I think about it, this feels like, all of this feels like a deliberate PTA reconstructing an Adam Sandler movie thing of like, because you can ask the question in both Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, even Big Daddy in a certain way of like, why do these women like this guy? This guy's a loser and he's a child. Why do they like him? And so maybe was intentional.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, the idea of like a deconstruction of a lovable loser finds love movie is going to fixate on this idea of like why like this doesn't quite, and I think maybe that's why the whole structure of the movie is built around this idea, according to my theory of just like, there is no reason. Sometimes good things just happen. Sometimes somebody's just attracted to you and you don't know why. And it's not obvious why, but there's something about you that just rings their bell for reasons maybe they couldn't even understand. And that is actually not unusual. Like it's actually more unusual that you ask someone like, why do you love your spouse? And you're like, oh, I have a rational answer for this. It's like, no, you don't have a rational answer typically. It's not how it works. So
yeah. No, you're right. All right. Anything else you wanted to say about Punch Drunk Love before we move on?
Nope.
I just want to say that, this is Paul Thomas Anderson, and this is why we love him, because he comes off Magnolia, this rich, complicated, challenging movie that is like no other. And then he goes, I'm gonna make a Adam Sandler film. And then from there he moves on to our next film, which will be There Will Be Blood, in which Danny Day-Lewis wins an Academy Award for his performance. So I think it is important to say that Paul Thomas Anderson is the only director ever to work with both Daniel Day-Lewis and Adam Sandler. And I think that's pretty fucking great, actually.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. That's one of the things I like about this guy.
Yeah. All right. As we said, next movie will be There Will Be Blood. A movie, of course, I've seen before. I know you've seen before, and I know we both love very much.
Yep, definitely.
Doof.
But before we end for the week, it's time, Matt, to look at what the 100 best films of the 21st century are, according to the New York Times. Actually, the New York Times did something really interesting with this list, Matt. They basically took submissions from critics, people in the film world, from directors, from actors. They had them all send a ballot in with their top 10 films of the 21st century, and then using magic, they calculated it all together and came up with a list of the 100 best films of the 21st century. You and I have, I think, at different points talked about, I think there was a Sight and Sound poll that did best films of the 21st century. So some of these are going to be things we've seen and talked about before, for sure.
Right.
But I guess before we get into the details of the list, what was kind of your overall reaction to just looking through this list?
So first of all, there were a lot of movies I hadn't seen, which I always sort of like to hear, because it means there's great stuff that I haven't watched that I should watch, and this is helping highlight it. And then in terms of the movies I have seen, I had a lot of reactions of like, I'm happy to see that on this list, and I'm pretty happy with where it is. There are a few nitpicks I could make where I'm just like, that seems really high for that movie, but that I think on like an overall sense, I thought it was a pretty good list.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. I've seen 85 of these 100 films, so I've seen a little bit more than you.
That's good.
But I enjoyed the list. So first of all, I think the first thing we should say before actually breaking this list down is getting mad about lists is like the dumbest thing in the world. Don't ever get mad about a list and a movie's place on a list. Like, that's silly. Like, you can agree with it or disagree with it, but getting angry about it is just stupid. It's just a list.
Yeah.
And this is not even like a single like editorial board list, right? This is a compilation list. This is what famous people in the industry who knew that other people were going to see what they picked submitted.
Right.
So like in a lot of ways, this list is very safe. It is kind of the things that you would expect to see. It is the movies that like have been seen in other lists and are generally regarded as very good films. It is not going to be a list with like a lot of like crazy, barely known avant-garde movies, because like these are people that exist in a world and they want to make sure that their opinions line up with the majority of people's opinions. I think you'll see that in things like for example, number 50 on this list is the Pixar film Up. Now, is Up really the 50th best film of the 21st century? I don't think so.
I don't know. I actually think that's one of my favorite Pixar films. So
I think it's a movie with a really good first 15 minutes, and then it's just kind of an okay movie.
Oh, so you haven't watched it 40 times?
No,
is what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I've watched it 40 times. And and I so okay, this is a tangent, my friend, but I had that same reaction. I had that same feeling about Up. Like, I watched it, probably in the theater, and then was like, wow, they sure did make us sad in that first 20 minutes. And then the rest of it felt kind of chaotic and all over the place. And I didn't think about it much. And then I had kids, and then I watched it 40 times with the kids. And then I realized, like, no, this is Pixar firing on all cylinders. All these elements are actually tied together really elegantly. It feels chaotic in terms of like pacing and from the character's point of view, but everything is well chosen and well created, and it has like the most poignant sort of like turnaround, emotional turnaround, catharsis moment toward the end of any. I think of I can easily say of any Pixar movie. It may just be one of my favorite sort of catharsis moments of all time. So I'm going to defend Up to anybody.
It's fair. It's definitely not better than Punch Drunk Love.
It's probably true.
Which also made it on this list, by the way.
Yeah.
Punch Drunk Love, number 56 on this list. Paul Thomas Anderson featured on this list 4 times. Punch Drunk Love, The Master, There Will Be Blood, and I believe Phantom Thread were all on this list. The winner, Matt, for the most amount of appearances on this list is Christopher Nolan at 5. 5 Nolan films are on here. I think the only Nolan film that is, well, I don't think The Prestige is on here, and Dunkirk is not on here, but Inception made the list. The Dark Knight, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, and Memento are all on this list.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think those are all great. I think one other thing you pointed out to me earlier is there's very few animated movies. We've got Up, we already discussed. We get Ratatouille,
and WALL-E.
WALL-E
is number 34, which again, like,
I am less. I'm not going to defend WALL-E as hard as I'm going to defend Up.
Again, this is like these are why lists are ultimately like silly, but they're still fun. Mm-hmm. Like I think, like, I take your point about Up, and I have not seen it enough to actually have a fight with you about that. But I think Up is on the list for the first 15 minutes of Up, right? Like,
yeah.
If people put it on their ballot, it's because they remember that very moving, sad first part of the film.
It's probably true.
I think WALL-E's on the list because it's about climate change.
Yeah.
Like WALL-E is a fine movie, but the 34th best film of the 21st century, I think it's about the climate. And if you're a famous person in the industry, trying to get your opinions on the matters of the day out there, you put WALL-E on your list.
I think that's probably true. I think there's also the element about that movie where it's sort of like the robot loves to watch old movies, and
that's true.
People who like movies love things that are about movies. Although this list, I would say, doesn't fall prey to that too much. There's not a whole lot of like self narcissism of just like all, I don't think La La Land is on this list at all, which is a movie I feel like the year that movie came out, everybody was like, this is the best movie of all time because it's about Hollywood. And it's not on this list at all. So
it's definitely better than WALL-E.
Is it? I never actually saw La La Land.
So if you like love movie musicals, you'll probably get a kick out of La La Land. I think it's fine. It's a fine movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Probably right. But like you said, it's funny. I got all hot under the collar just now because you disagreed with the placement of WALL-E, and I thought the placement of WALL-E was fine. So clearly, lists are a land of contrasts. So
you think WALL-E is the 34th best film of the 21st century?
Not necessarily. I have a pretty sophisticated and well developed sense of what makes a movie better than another movie, and the answer is I don't know. It depends.
Okay, Whiplash is 60 on this list. I picked a film that I know you love.
Okay, Whiplash is probably better than Up. Yes, that's a good point.
Okay,
I mean,
Kill Bill Volume 2, 61. Memento, 62.
Okay, this list is garbage.
Oppenheimer, 65.
Okay, all right. You made your point.
No, I mean, I think it's fun. It's fun, right? I think you are right that it is surprising that animated films did not feature. I guess it's not that surprising. I guess I was surprised that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse didn't make the list at all. I would have think that would have been, that's one of those like animated movies people feel comfortable nominating because it was like this watershed moment and hey, we can do animation differently. The highest ranking animated film is Miyazaki's Spirited Away, which made it to 9 on the list.
Yeah, that was the only one I forgot in my list just a minute ago of the animated movies. So
But again, that's like I think that's a beautiful movie that I deeply love.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if you're gonna pick one Miyazaki, like that's usually the one.
Yeah, you're right. I think you also pointed out there's a couple of documentaries on here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is cool because typically lists like this don't have documentaries, so it's just cool to see.
It was, gosh, what was the one that?
So Grizzly Man is on here.
Yeah.
And also, didn't you say The Act of Killing is somewhere
The
on
Act
here?
of Killing, that's the name of it, yeah. The Act of Killing is a documentary that both you and I watched, and we did an episode on years and years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorite documentaries ever.
Yeah.
I was affected by that doc in a way that I don't think I ever have been watching a documentary.
Almost like thankfully so, right?
Yeah.
It's really powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Let's talk about the top. So I want to talk about the top 20, but we'll talk about the top 10 first. But because I almost think 11 to 20 is like more interesting than 1 to 10.
Okay.
But so our top 10 are The Social Network at 10, Spirited Away at 9, Get Out at 8, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind at 7, No Country for Old Men at 6, Moonlight at 5, the film that beat La La Land, gets 5 on the list. La La Land, nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love is number 4. There Will Be Blood. Hey, that's our guy next week. Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yep.
At 2, Mulholland Drive, David Lynch. And at number 1, Parasite, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. So what is your kind of reaction to these being the top 10?
Sort of a mix of like, yeah, that movie definitely deserves to be on the top 10, and then also like, but not at that particular place, which I think is just going to come down to personal preference. Like,
sure, yeah.
I don't think if you had asked me to guess a priori before seeing this, what would be number 1? I never would have guessed Parasite. That seems very strange to me, but there it is, and I'm not going to nitpick it or argue with it.
I think it is like, first of all, before I say this, Parasite is an incredible movie that was my favorite film of the year it came out. I loved it. It is also a movie about class warfare, income inequality, capitalism, all the things that are in the social conscious right now.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the fact that, in my opinion, everyone misunderstood the movie because and I still feel this way, that the movie is very sort of like even-handed in like basically hating everyone in the movie and criticizing everyone.
Yeah.
And the way people talked about it, it was like, aren't these rich people awful? And it's like, no, that's not what the movie's doing. You're projecting your social beliefs onto the movie, which whatever, it's fine.
I think the movie is at its core about people.
Yeah.
And the things people do and the way people treat each other when incentivized to do so. Exactly.
And I still think it's a great movie. I just think that a lot of people just want it to be about the thing that they want it to be about.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I don't know. Don't have much to say about it. Most of these movies, I'm just like, yep, totally makes sense. Belongs in the top 10. Did you have any other reactions in that?
No, I mean, I think I like to love every single one of these movies. I think it's interesting. So, okay, I have to tread carefully here. I think Mulholland Drive is an excellent film.
Uh-huh.
I think it's David Lynch's best. I really enjoy watching it. I'm kind of really fascinated by the fact that it is just like perpetually at the top of like the best films of all time lists. Like, not even just of the 21st century. This is a movie that appears on the Sight and Sound best films of all time list at the very, very top. I believe it's number 1, actually.
Yeah.
It's like it's a movie I love, but like the best, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it just ultimately comes down to like what you want in movies.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely has those features of like being a movie for movie people, where it's about LA and It's Lynchian and atmospheric and impenetrable, and movie people love all that stuff. And I also like that stuff, but I also like a good, clear narrative. I'm mildly disappointed that Edge of Tomorrow isn't on this list. So like, I think I can simultaneously like appreciate Lynch, but I also always sort of feel like a bit of a fraud, because I don't think that I'm seeing the same thing that everyone else is seeing when they talk about how Lynch is the greatest genius ever. I'm just like, no, I'm not saying I don't like Lynch. I'm not saying Lynch isn't great. I'm saying whatever it is that you're seeing that makes you say he's the best, I don't know if I'm seeing that. Like in my mind, Paul Thomas Anderson is a more like powerful director than David Lynch was.
I think I would agree with that.
So,
and that's, I mean, I enjoyed Lynch. I do.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this movie being at the top, like near the top of any list. I find it kind of endlessly fascinating that it remains at the top everywhere constantly.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so let's briefly go to 20 through 11, and then we can wrap up the episode.
Sure.
So 20 is Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. I think this is the only Scorsese on the list. Hold on, let me confirm that. No, The Departed is also on the list. Oh yeah. But The Wolf of Wall Street is higher. So 20 is The Wolf of Wall Street. David Fincher's Zodiac is number 19. Fincher appears 3 times on the list. Alfonso Cuarón's Y tu mamá también, a movie I haven't seen, unfortunately, is on the list. Cuarón also appears on this list 4 times. Brokeback Mountain is 17. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is 16. So that's 2 Ang Lee movies in a row. Good for you, Ang Lee. City of God is 15. Inglourious Bastards is 14. There are 3 Tarantino films on the list. Children of Men, there's Cuarón again, is 13. The Zone of Interest is 12. Mad Max Fury Road is number 11. All right. Rapid reactions, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah. Other than I've also not seen Y tu mamá también, nor have I seen City of God. But other than that, I love all these movies. I don't know about The Zone of Interest being this high on the list. I think we both thought that was like a really powerful movie, but like that's really high. That's a really high place.
It feels like recency bias to me, and I agree with you. Like, I think this is a great film.
Yeah. I'm kind of happy to see Mad Max Fury Road at 11. This is not meant to be like a backhanded compliment, because I think it's a great movie, but it's like the most pulpy movie that's near the top of the list. Like it's an action movie, right? Like, yes, it's more than an action movie, but it is a movie where a man kills men with his car that he has souped up. So it's just kind of it makes me feel like this isn't one of those totally pretentious lists,
Yeah. On the same side, though, it's like the one action movie that you would feel safe in picking.
True,
because it's generally universally beloved.
That's fair, yeah.
And like it's well deserved. Like, I think this is an incredible movie. It's probably the greatest action movie I've ever watched. But yeah, it is. And if you're trying to not take chances here,
yeah.
What did you think about Inglourious Bastards being 14? I love Tarantino, and I think this is a very good movie. I am surprised it was the highest Tarantino movie. So we have Kill Bill. We have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we have Inglourious Bastards are the 3 films on this list. Kill Bill is 61. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is 44. Then we jump all the way down to 14 for this one.
I think Inglourious Bastards has kind of grown on me over the years. I think one thing that you notice when you get in the habit of letting YouTube start feeding you clips of things is that Inglourious Bastards is basically like any given 10 minutes of it are just incredibly riveting. It's one of those movies, and I think Tarantino is particularly good at this, but this movie is maybe the best example of it, where like he has these ideas for these scenes, and the scene is just the most tightly written thing ever, and you're so tense. And
Yeah.
then that scene ends, and then we move on to the next scene, and that's kind of the whole movie. The whole movie's just that over and
Yeah.
over. So
definitely the opening scene of this movie is like just one of the greatest moments of held suspended tension
yeah,
ever.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it makes a degree of sense for that to be there.
I think I haven't seen Children of Men in a long time, but I remember really liking it. So I have no problem with it being 13 on this list.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I'm actually just like pleased to see it there because I've always loved that movie. I've always thought it was great. I feel like it's, despite the fact that yes, it's well known and it's appreciated, I think it kind of gets written off sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see it so high here.
Yeah. I also think like if this is a list that is both a measurement of the best in film, but also is using film as a measurement in kind of the changing landscape of culture and in film culture, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is an incredible moment in film history. Like, this movie was massive.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. And it was a foreign martial arts film that broke big in our country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is important and matters.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's the thing we have to remember. Like, the lists serve many different masters, right? Like Brokeback Mountain, 17 on this list. Very good movie. Very, very good movie. Really loved the gay cowboy movie.
Yeah.
But also, from a cultural standpoint, it was a huge moment.
Yeah.
In our culture. It was like this movie had more cultural impact than almost any on this list, almost, because like love it or get irrationally and horribly angry at it, like everyone was talking about this movie.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's, I think, relatively speaking, a valid reason to put something on a list is like,
yeah,
it changed the world. It did, actually. I mean, it's not an exaggeration.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. Any standouts for you that we haven't already mentioned?
Oh, not standouts. I mean, I think like one thing that tickled me was just how many of the directors that we have chosen to focus on and do Deconstructing a series on are like really highly represented in this series. And
yeah,
on the one hand, it's not that surprising. On the other hand, it's like, my taste aligns with the taste of others. That is reassuring in some way.
Sure. Yeah. Pretty disappointing that Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End not on this list.
Are any gore movies on this list at all?
I don't think so.
That's sad.
No Gore Verbinski.
I love gore. I miss gore.
I believe the only Ridley Scott film on this list is Gladiator.
That's also a little surprising, I guess. But
yeah.
But again, we remind ourselves this is the 21st century.
Right. Like, honestly, if we look through our list of movies we covered for Deconstructing Ridley Scott, like how many of the movies we loved were in the 21st century?
Yeah, exactly.
Not too many.
Not too many. And it's interesting, just a total aside here, but sometimes I listen to our old episodes, and I think of the old episodes I've listened to, most frequently, the Deconstructing Ridley Scott series is enormously overrepresented.
Interesting.
And I'm not like, I don't have like a reason. It just turns out to be the case that like, I just love so many of his movies. And then even the movies that we didn't like, sometimes I find that I want to listen to him again to like think about why it didn't work. I don't know. It's just a little fact for you.
No, that's really fascinating. I think I see why, but yeah, I would not have guessed that at all.
Yeah.
Your boy Richard Linklater
on
this list 2 times.
Oh, Good for him.
Boyhood, the movie you can't stand, is
Uh-huh.
number 23, and then Before Sunset. Have you seen the Before trilogy?
No.
I think we need to watch those movies.
Oh yeah, sounds really good. I can't wait.
I know you're not a fan of Linklater. I legitimately think there's something in those movies that will move you.
Oh, you're probably right. I'm just being a little shit.
Wes Anderson, twice. Royal Tenenbaums and oh gosh, what was the other one?
Grand Budapest.
Grand Budapest Hotel. Yeah, my favorite one. So fine with that. Spike Jonze on the list 2 times. First for Her, one of my favorite films, and another for Adaptation, also one of my favorite films.
Fantastic.
So my favorite film, Adaptation, is number 27 on the list. So
yeah,
I am a man of taste.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that many of our favorite movies are on this list, and that means it's a good list.
Yeah. My favorite film is higher on the list than WALL-E, so I win.
So it's a good list, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
there we go.
Now, I could choose to let it bother me that neither of the Dune movies are on this list, but I think I've already accepted in my heart that like none of the Hollywood insiders like the Dune movies.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't bother me that much.
I think Arrival is the only Villeneuve movie on the list.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's true.
Which is great, but no Blade Runner love, no Dune love, no Sicario.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their problem is when it comes to Villeneuve.
Do you think a list like this would be better if you limit it to one movie per director when putting it together, or not?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it would be better in the sense that it would have more variety and more maybe weird stuff we haven't seen or heard about. Like that would be cool in a sense. But again, like you said, that lists serve many masters. It depends on what it's trying to do.
Sure. Lord of the Rings, number 87. Seems in the wrong spot there.
Yeah. So did they, I guess I kind of glossed over that. Did they put that, what is that? The whole thing? They just
it's the Fellowship.
Oh, the Fellowship.
Yeah.
Which I think
it's become the most common thing where if you want to put the Lord of the Rings on a list, you just put the first movie, which is, I mean, maybe it is just the best movie. I think there's an argument there for sure.
Yeah, I think at some point we agreed that was the case. I feel like in terms of film history, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is going to turn out to have been incredibly important in a way that, WALL-E will not have been. So yes, I do think that's a little bit low, but I guess it complexifies the whole thing that it's actually a trilogy. And every time there's multiple movies in a series, you have sort of a spoiler effect where it's going to be placed lower because maybe other people put The Two Towers as their number one, and then it just messes it all up.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Another interesting one is Steven Spielberg on this list exactly one time for Minority Report. That's it.
Huh. Well, I guess the 20th century was his time.
I suppose. I mean, yeah, I do think Spielberg's best movies were in the 90s, but I also think he's one of the greatest directors of all time. And it was a little surprising. Like, I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we're just wrong and he hasn't been good in the 21st century at all. Well, we have AI, artificial intelligence. Love that movie. Minority Report, obviously.
Yeah.
Catch Me If You Can. Love that movie. War of the Worlds. That was okay. Munich was pretty good. The Adventures of Tintin. Okay. War Horse. Okay. Lincoln was pretty good.
Bridge of Spies. Yeah,
Bridge of Spies was good.
It's fine. Yeah.
The Post was okay. Ready Player One. Don't know what he was thinking there. I thought his version of West Side Story was excellent. Really loved that movie. And I also thought The Fabelmans was very good. So
yeah.
I'm a little surprised there wasn't more Spielberg.
I mean, I haven't seen a lot of those, but I will note that you said like pretty good and really good. You didn't say like, one of my favorite movies. So,
well, okay. I think every movie I just said is better than WALL-E.
Fair enough.
Except maybe not War Horse or The Adventures of Tintin.
Yeah, I think War of the Worlds is a really good movie, actually.
I like that movie a lot. I don't know if I would have put it on a top 100 list, but I would definitely put Catch Me If You Can on there because I think that's an excellent film.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Minority Report, but I don't know if Minority Report is better than Munich, but
yeah,
it's certainly more fun. I like Minority Report. Happy to see it on the list. No criticism.
I just want to point out that I'm looking at these on IMDb, and they put the IMDb user rating there.
Uh-huh.
And Ready Player One is rated higher than Lincoln, than Munich, than War of the Worlds, almost than AI, almost better than Minority Report.
Yeah. I think if we had seen that movie when we were younger and less like jaded and internet pilled, we probably would have liked it more. This isn't a comment about the quality of the movie. I think it's just true that Spielberg is really good at making crowd pleasers, and that's a crowd pleaser. And it would have worked on us if we hadn't, if the internet hadn't gotten to us first.
Maybe. I despise that movie.
I think I've only seen it once, so.
I really hate it. I hate the book too. I read the book and I was like, fun story about the book, and then we can finish the show. Like I was on, this is going to nerd me out so much, but I was like anxiously awaiting the MMORPG Final Fantasy 14. They were doing they did this kind of unheard of thing where they completely shut down the game and then completely rebuilt it from the ground up, basically, and then re-released it. And I was in a server group of people anxiously awaiting the return, a message board. You remember what message boards were?
I do.
Anxiously awaiting this game coming back. And so it was just talking with people in there, and someone said, "Hey, let's do a book club." And it's like, yeah, great. And someone picked Ready Player One for the book club. So that's why I read it. And I read it, and then I got on the message board, and assuming that everyone would just agree with me, I just ripped the book to shreds. And then everyone else loved it. No one wanted to talk to me anymore.
Oh, man.
That's my story.
I'm trying to remember why I read it, because I don't. Yeah, I did read it. I didn't like it, but I didn't have as dramatic a story as you. So.
All right. Well, that's a great way to end our discussion on the 100 best films of the 21st century so far. We have 75 more years in the century, but
that's true.
Pretty good list.
Yeah.
I also like that they just kind of collectively agreed to call 2000 the 21st century, even though it technically is not.
Yeah, I
think we've all just decided that's just the case.
Yeah, it's easy. It makes things more permissive, so we're fine with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, that's all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love or on the top 100 films of the 21st century list, please reach out to us and let us know. You can find us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, on Twitter @doofmedia, on Instagram @doofmedia, and at our subreddit, reddit.com/r/doofmedia. If you are looking for the top 100 list, the New York Times is technically paywalling it. But if you have Letterboxd, you can just go to Letterboxd and search, and people have recreated the list there. The one I found on Letterboxd that recreated the list actually also included a hyperlink for an article share version of the list. So you can find it that way, but it's out there if you don't pay for the New York Times, because I certainly don't.
Yeah, that's good to know. If you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
You can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do at Doof Media and want to support us, consider becoming a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of the available levels. You will get access to a bunch of ongoing bonus content, ability to vote in book clubs, which we are having book club this Saturday, the 5th of July at 9:30 p.m. We're talking about Battle Royale in a couple days, so check that out and be part of the vote for the books in the future. That's patreon.com/doofmedia.
That's right. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, next week we will return with Paul Thomas Anderson's fifth film, the Oscar accoladed, if that's a word, There Will Be Blood. We'll see you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.